Hello, everyone. Welcome to another stream in English with Theo. I have to ask Theo how it's pronounced. It's like Theo. Here in Argentina, we have Theo. Like it's almost the same thing, but you don't have the th. You have the t. So it's always when we have Mishko here. I was like saying Mishko all the time, and it was like Misko or something like that. So well, let's welcome Theo. Theo. Hello. Uh, I think that people hears you, but I'm not so sure about it. So let's say, oh, no, they say that you are muted. Okay, this will use, read access. Oh man, shouldn't I have something like, I want to use audio from this source? Oh, control audio via OBS. Now. Okay, talk now.
There we are. Testing, testing. Can you guys hear me now?
Well, now people should be hearing you, but I don't hear
Yay.
you. So let's just unmute this now and let's check now.
Whoa, how does that work?
Okay, now I hear you. I think people hear you, but the thing is, do people hear you twice? Okay, we hear Theo. Okay, awesome, it works. Great.
But do you hear me twice is the question.
No, I don't
is it
hear you
doubling up
twice.
for y'all? Nope.
No, I
Cool.
don't know
But do
why.
they?
No, I think
Nice.
it's okay now. They hear you now. Awesome. Well, now yes, welcome to the stream. Without we are testing in production, so it's okay. We are using an awesome tool that it's called ping.gg. I don't know if you know it, but introduce yourself for people in here.
Howdy, my name is Theo. I am an engineer that used to work at Twitch. I now run a company, ping.gg. We're focused on making it easier to do collabs just like this one, building streamer tools to make it as simple as possible to do high quality collaborative content with a future with everything from recording to VOD management and everything else you need to be a successful creator doing video on multiple platforms. I've had a lot of success taking my live streams where I go on rants for everything from comparing database solutions to front end architecture, and my YouTube channel is mostly clips from that. We've also had a lot of success in the community with the technologies I discuss becoming really cool open source or projects on how to build with them. Create T3 App in particular is something that I'm really proud of, that I had nothing to do with the creation of. It was just a concept I had of what if the technologies we like to use had a CLI where you pick the ones you wanted and or assembled from there. And the response has been absurd. We broke 5,000 stars on GitHub, and I'm really excited to show you what we built.
Well, I think it will be awesome because I heard a lot about the T3 stack, but I haven't tried most of the technologies. I think I used Prisma, but like years ago when they have this managed database that it was horrible, and then they changed the name and other things. Music is a bit too high. Okay, let me fix that. Okay.
I could rant a lot about the history of Prisma in particular. It has been a crazy story with what they've been up to. They started as a GraphQL like database builder tool and quickly learned bad idea.
That was my
I think
moment.
that as an industry we've realized like GraphQL is not an SQL replacement. We should stop doing that. And GraphQL is between your server and your user, not between your server and your database. Prisma realized that. They realized what they had built to actually work with the database was valuable enough to focus in on that. And now Prisma is focused on being the best type-safe TypeScript client for your SQL backend.
Nice. Well, I think I have to give them another chance then. The other thing is that I really don't know. I heard a lot of good things, but most came from people from your stream talking about TRPC. So what is TRPC?
TRPC is my favorite way to build full stack applications. The best TLDR is it is a simple way to write a function on your backend and call it on your front To be a little more detailed, it is taking advantage of anything that's roughly Express compliant. So anything that has a request response, you can use the Next.js API routes. You can use the raw like API directory on any Vercel deployment. You can use an Express server, a Fastly server, or you can deploy it on Edge workers now too. And the goal is to write a simple validator and function, and then import the type definition on the front end as a way to call it. So at compile time, all the backend gets erased on the front end, except for a fetch call with the right data and the right type signature when you work with it in dev. It's full of little magical ahas as you use it. Like when you're editing your backend files in VS Code, you don't have to save them to see the type safe changes on the front end. So if you delete a query in your backend, before you even save, you see a bunch of type errors appear in other files letting you know that that was being used. And the magic there of having a responsive quality development experience building full stack is surreal. And there's a reason that the whole community is as excited about it as it is. Once you try it, it's really hard to go back.
I got spoiled by it because I said to myself, hey, I won't Google anything about it to get like the entire hype live. But I Googled Trpc a couple of days ago and I saw this screen where someone was changing something on the backend and in the API folder, and before saving, they were saying like, this field is not in the response or something like that. And I said, man, this is what I always wanted. And also I saw your streams a lot. We agree in a lot of conventions for files and things. Like one of the last things I heard was this thing about why people create so many files, and I don't know, for 2 years I'm saying, hey, this file will have the types, will have the components, will have the hooks, will have the context. Like I get so many benefits out of it. So I think this coding session, the idea is you guiding me through my first T3 application, but not just that. I want to be like a full experience through this process, saying, why do you think these things are good? Or if I'm doing something wrong, I say, hey, I know you are doing something wrong. And that's why. So like try to get all the information for the people and for me during this process. So if we have any questions and you see any questions in the chat, you can just jump in saying, hey, these people say you are wrong. And they are probably right. But well,
I am so excited for that.
yeah, I always messing things. So the first thing is, what can we do as a first T3 application?
Depends on how all in we want to go. So want to go to the create T3 app GitHub quick so we can look through it a bit because I want to emphasize an important part about it.
So it's create T3 app.
T3 app.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then on here, there's a GitHub link.
Okay. To a GitHub link.
Perfect. So if we scroll down a bit to the README, there's a bullet point list of the technologies that are in it. Scroll a little further. This guy here. So one important thing to know about Create T3 App is everything in here other than Next.js and TypeScript is optional. So when you actually start a Create T3 App project, the point of the T3 stack isn't you use all of these things all the time. It's these are pieces I have found assemble really well for the types of problems you might run into. I would consider React Queries, Ustan, Jodi, and a bunch of other libraries part of the T3 stack, but these are the core pieces that are necessary to build a lot of applications. But I actually find it kind of rare that I need all of them. Depending on for most side projects, for example, I don't necessarily need auth. For some projects, I don't even need Tailwind. I'm just using this as a way to deploy backend functions. For some projects, I don't need Prisma because I want to run auth on Redis instead. I wanted to make sure when we built this that we weren't saying install these 7 packages for your blog. Rather, here are the pieces that we regularly work with that have unique parts in how they're assembled. So the relationship between Nextauth, Prisma, and Trpc can be a little complex at times, and we really wanted to make sure we had that solved well for anybody using all 3 parts for the first time.
Yeah, because that's one of the main problems I usually see with these boilerplate repositories, where you see this, let's create an application with these 20 technologies, and you end up doing a to-do list and you have like Redux in it. I say, why you need to have all of this in here? So I think it's quite cool that you have like the less opinionated um, points in when you
Yep.
start a project.
One specific rule we have is we don't include anything you can just npm install. So if it's as simple as npm install Zustand or npm install Redux, we're not going to include that because that's your responsibility as the developer to pick those packages when you need them. These packages all have some amount of setup that's complex and some amount of interop that's complex that we wanted to solve for you so you can not worry about those annoying things when you get started.
Awesome. I just realized that I think I didn't change the title for the stream, so people should be reading something. Okay, we are resolving algorithms things. So
Well,
let's doing my first 3 stack up. And well, I think this is not needed anymore. So let's do this, and let's put the Trpc thing here. I like these buzzwords. We have that
yeah, the
in
new
there.
tag system, I'm so happy that finally shipped. There were
Yeah,
wars about that internally for a while.
yeah, because it was like the amount of people that was streaming programming in basic programming, it was too high. And well, let's do the thing. Well, thank you for all the subs, people. It was Lucas, Aida,
There's also a raid
Joaco.
from Stack the Pile.
Yeah, Feral, we hit Hype Train, we had Zero Cosmos for you, Fabros, and where is the right Stack the Pile. Do you know Stack the Pile?
I can't say I do.
Okay, well, thank you, Stack the Pile. We just started with creating this man, I can't speak Spanish and I had to speak English.
Judging by the name, I'm going to like them. I just gave them a follow. I'll be sure to check out your next stream.
So well, let's start. So we have this create T3 app. We can do npx create T3 app. So let's go to in
Yep.
here. Let's do this. Let's see what we find. Yeah.
So for this first question, it's going to ask JavaScript or TypeScript. Pick JavaScript. Trust me.
Well, I have to ask why because I really don't.
You'll see. You'll see. Don't worry.
Man, I really have to.
Just,
like,
yes, trust me.
Okay. Awesome. Great. So let's start like imagine that we are going to do like a to-do app. So I will connect to some kind of database and I really want to try Prisma. So let's do Prisma. But we don't have auth and I really don't want to use Tailwind. So Trpc is used also to connect to Prisma.
It is the replacement for what you would usually use like Next.js API functions for. So if you were to like in like pages/API build an endpoint that you're fetching from the client, TRPC replaces that. So Prisma only lets your server communicate with your database. So it's like Lambda to DB, but going from Lambda to client, that's what TRPC does.
So probably we will get information. Let's imagine get server-side props. We won't use TRPC there, but then we will have endpoints for creating or removing things from a to-do, and
or even fetching the updated ones. So like when you make a change, getting like the updated state from the server, TRPC is a really good way to do that.
Okay, let's do the thing then. Let's use Prisma and TRPC. Yep. We'll actually, yep. So, let's go to interview a little bit because I have to open VS Code and I want to be sure. Oh man, I'm glad that no one. So
I had a stream where I leaked my environment variables 3 times in one stream once. I feel you.
No, man. I will get fired if someone says this. So we are on Ubuntu. Great. Open folder, and this was projects and how this thing was called. Okay, great. Okay, and let's go back to screen.
Nice.
Let's put the thing in here, this one in here, and let's put some zoom in it. Update? No, I won't update. And okay, this thing says that I have to do cd my T3 app, npx,
Yep.
Prisma,
So
db
we
push.
can't do that until we have picked what we want our database to be. So
But
if you npm,
I wasn't told about that.
Yep, we should change the instructions there because they have changed recently. We made the hard decision that in order to maintain our really strong type safety goals, that we wanted to make environment variables type safe. But the result of that is you can actually try npm run dev right now. You'll get an error.
Okay, let's see. npm run dev.
Since we didn't use nextauth, we're not going to get an error, and it's going to default to SQLite. That actually might be a correct instruction. Cool. My maintainers know this better than me.
Okay, great. So what should I do then? Should I
Let's
close
go into the code quick. I just want to confirm that. Check the environment variables in this for now. I just want to see what the default. Yep, it's using SQLite by default. That's fine. So what I expected, because usually we would put in, or if you used auth in this template, we can't provide you a default sign in like app ID for GitHub. You would put a GitHub provider in here, in this case, the Discord provider. So if you needed those inside of your application, we would want to make sure that you have those when the application starts. So we actually check at the beginning of the application's lifecycle using Zod. We validate against your environment variables to make sure that they are present. And if they aren't present, we throw. But since we don't have auth, which isn't unique stuff, the instructions were correct. We should do the Prisma DB push, and then we should run dev. My bad on that. I don't know why I didn't trust Julius.
I don't know if I have to say this, but I have never used nextauth. I know that it's an awesome library, and I really love Balas, but I have never used it. I mean, I created some examples with it, but it was like the hello world. It's so good as people say.
Yeah, it's really good in how generally minimal it is and how well supported it is community-wise. Like, as you mentioned, Ballas is incredible and he's really on top of things. The community maintaining all of the bindings for it are great. I like the way it handles ownership for me. Is like at Ping, we do lots of weird things with our auth at times. Like we're adding in a bunch of new auth providers soon. We have users who share them between like they'll switch between their Discord, Facebook, and Twitter or Twitch auth on one account. We want to add things in like chat support and stuff in the future. Owning our auth layer makes it much easier to make those types of changes rather than opting into a third-party solution. And having these talented maintainers building the integrations for us, building the Prisma layer for us, building the update layers for us makes removing a lot easier. That said, I have 3 patch packages on our nextauth install right now because we're doing enough custom stuff that I have to dig in at that level. So yes, nextauth is probably the best way to do auth in a Next.js application, but also if you want to do crazy stuff, you will have to do some custom stuff.
Okay, so we selected Prisma and Trpc. We didn't select nextauth, but if we eventually want to add it because something, we can just do an install and that will work, or the install does some crazy things. Okay, great.
So the install doesn't do anything crazy, but when we init with create T3 app, we handle a bunch of integration type stuff for you. I'll show you a bit of it when we get into TRPC, but one of the big ones is in the average TRPC like query or mutation, you're probably going to want to check auth at some point. So we bundle the auth within the context so that you immediately have auth whenever you're checking a query, which is super useful on your backend.
Sorry, but I have to install my ESLint configuration because I can't live without it. So I will just run the thing and we'll just start the project again.
Very interesting. I am curious. Also, we should do the npm or npx Prisma DB push as well before I forget, because that was a correct instruction.
Right. Why this? Oh man, because I don't know if I have Yo installed in, because I created a new WSL2 instance the other day. Yeah, I don't know why I think that's like a good idea a few days ago. Come on,
I
man.
wish I had the strength emotionally to use Windows subsystem for Linux. I still like occasionally do dev work on it because I have to work on Windows a lot to test things on Windows. But I can't imagine like this, like doing a stream with Windows subsystem for Linux. That would stress me out.
Oh man. But okay, I'm doing it in there. Let's do something. Let's do PowerShell in here. And let's run the thing again. So projects, and this was npx create T3 App. Yep. Because I usually do the thing in PowerShell. People will cancel
Can we
me.
convince you to use Tailwind this time?
Okay. It was really hard. Okay. I should have said no, and you say okay, please, and say okay.
Tailwind is probably the thing of these things, other than maybe TypeScript. I think Tailwind would be the hardest for me to give up. People ask me all the time, like, if you couldn't use Tailwind, what would you use instead? My answer is I would go remake Tailwind because I love it that much.
Well, I this is something you won't like, but I really like Chakra, but not because I think it's the best solution, but because I prefer people to buy like a better internet and spend more in bandwidth than what it takes for me to really use something else. Like I prefer people to pay the price, not me. I use Tailwinds a lot of times. We use Tailwinds at Vercel, but I know I like the primitives that are there. I like their theme system, but yeah, I know it's not the best option. I mean, I think I won't use it again for a real project, like something that scales, but I usually use it for small things.
I want to be clear that I don't hate Chakra. I hate that people think it competes with Tailwind. I consider like Tailwind closer to SCSS. I consider like MUI and Chakra to be much more similar as well. And I've talked about this before. There are good use cases for MUI. If your goal is to make something that works and looks decent as fast as possible, I understand. The beauty for me of Tailwind is it made me love CSS again. I had stopped liking styling before Tailwind because CSS was tedious to write and more controlled solutions didn't give me enough, or more like prescriptive solutions like MUI or Chakra didn't give me the flexibility to design things or really encourage me to in any meaningful way. Tailwind forced me to get better at CSS, and I love it for that.
Well, I think Chakra it's way more flexible than what people think. But yes, I think you can compete to not using JS for styles in terms of performance and what you ship and a lot of other things. So yeah, I will totally go for a non-JS solution for most productive application. But for the rest of the things, like let's do this application, I will totally use something like Chakra. Hey Mans, thanks for the raid.
Man,
so I was about to tell something.
Looks like we're ready to get started.
We had a stream with Pedro Duarte, the one that made Radix and Stitches.
Oh, no way.
And I think the style system, like the theme system that Stitches has, it's really awesome. And it ships really low JS. And I will really expect that eventually Chakra can migrate their dependency on emotion to something like, okay, let's not use emotion anymore and let's move to something like Stitches. And that will be awesome because you still have the good things from Chakra, but you don't have the big library that emotion is. So let's stop.
Very excited for that. I will say that Stitches has not been the most collaborative from what I've seen. I've seen a few issues that are along the lines of, is this project dead? That didn't have the best responses. So I'm scared to invest too heavily on Stitches personally right now, and I could see why other open source maintainers would be as well. That said, it is a technically speaking incredible solution. Radix is super well maintained and one of the best bets you can make for like building your web applications. It's that space is in a really interesting like shifting. Like it feels like everything's changing slowly, then all at once right now in the UI library world, and I'm really excited to see how things are like improving.
Yeah. Also, the thing is that, as far as I know, Radix and Stitches was mainly done by Shensi and Pedro, and both left. How it's the corporation called? Well, they both left the project, so it's hard to say, hey, I will invest in this, and the people who created this and maintained this for so long left the company already. So invite Pedro to
Love that.
stream. Yeah, you have. I when I invited Pedro, he's called Pedro Duarte. That it's like a really Spanish name, and I saw that he was from Brazil, so I assumed that he speaks Spanish, and I started like sending messages to him, and eventually he said, "Hey, I don't speak Spanish," and I say like, "What?" So we had this thing about me speaking Spanish and he replying in Spanish, and then we switched it to this thing, the same thing we did with Cassie, like me speaking Spanish and he replying in English. So we should totally do something like that again.
I do love that.
So we have the thing
Cool.
running.
Yep, let's check out localhost 3000. Cool, there we are. Do you see the hello from Trpc?
Let's do the thing. Oh, design is my passion. We have Next.js, Tailwinds, Trpc, Typescript. We had some question. Oh, there. The name was modules, or how it's called. If any question, did you find any question, like any interesting question in the chat that you want
Not
to
so
cover
much
before
just
we
yet.
start?
I feel like I've done a good job of just replying to things, at least the ones that are in my language, so I can read them. But
Okay.
yeah, I'm barely good enough at speaking English, so doing my best.
Okay, people.
Gabriel, there's nothing to test. A lot of my fans are from Brazil and Argentina and lots of places that speak Spanish. Like at least 20% of my audience from the numbers I've looked at. So I'm sure they'll have a lot of fun bullying me for my inability to speak Spanish.
A lot of the people from the community that speak Spanish, it was really hyped about you coming today. So I can confirm that you have a lot of people at least in Argentina. In Argentina.
I am really hyped to hear, honestly.
So let's do something. What should we do now?
Cool. I want to show you the magic of TRPC first. So let's go hop into, let's go to source pages like index to start.
Okay.
Index. So in here, you'll see we have a trpc.use query.
wait.
Why is that mad?
tsconfig.
Oh, your tsconfig, the Gonzi thing you ran might have broken the tsconfig.
No, because we are on the.
Oh, you're in the old folder.
Close this. Yeah. Reopen folder in Windows. No, I don't want to.
No, we made a new one, right?
Yep. So open folder, projects, my T3 app. So no, I won't update. Okay, great. And let's see now.
Source pages index.
Nice. And I should see something in yellow, right? Because Flint is in there. It's downloaded something.
Might just be creating the
yeah, there it is.
Saving.
Let's give it. Okay, great. It was like this. Save it. Great, awesome. It works.
Nice.
Cool.
I want to show off the magic of TRPC first and foremost. So we're still using V9. We have a new version that uses V10, which is slightly more magic, but we're still I'm chatting with the maintaining team there. We're figuring out what exactly we want the API to look like. So I didn't want to demo that just yet. What we can do though, we see here we have the example.hello. Yeah. That is a backend function that exists in our TRPC router. So if you try rewriting that string to something else, you should get a type error. So just change that to anything else. Now it's a type error. And if you hover over it, you should be able to see all of the different functions that we have. It's not example.hello or example.getAll.
Nice.
Because that's our backend. And if you delete the whole string and just start typing, it will autocomplete from the beginning. So if you just type I think if you press control space, it'll start to autocomplete
example, getAll, and hello.
Yep.
Awesome.
Cool. And if you try passing another thing to the input there. It's like text from TRPC. Try making that a number instead. Oh, look at that.
Also, yeah, it says that it's not a, and it will say you only have known properties and something doesn't exist. Oh, okay, so
Exactly.
text can be string, null, undefined. So let's do something like
Change
9.
that to a number.
Awesome. And we
And if
have
you
a
hover over
schema for
hello,
this.
which is the response, it will show you. We'll get there in just a sec. I want you to see, like, we get the type response there. If you one line below do hello.data, that will be the type or the actual data from it. So if you
But no,
hover
wait.
over that, it'll tell you exactly what the type def is.
Okay, but this can be okay undefined if it didn't resolve
If it hasn't
and
loaded
string.
yet.
Okay, right. And
Yep, so
then we have a hello dot loading or something. It's loading. Okay.
it is loading. Have you used React Query before?
Yep. Not
This is
so
wrapping
much,
React
but
Query. So all of the like destructuring and things you could do with React Query, you can do here. I personally don't tend to bind one variable for a whole query. I would have destructured that into data is loading and is error, and then had those 3 different things to use.
makes sense.
So if you, yep. So you could do data, comma is loading.
And is error is the other one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. If you want to use that as well. I don't think that we'll have errors in this case, but if we did, that'd be useful. Then if we scroll down to where it was being used, there's probably a type error. You can just delete hello and change that to just data.
Okay. And we should do something like it's loading, otherwise it's error. But let's do.
We don't need to do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
let's
understand these workflows pretty well. Yep,
So
still does
hello.
exactly what it's supposed to.
Loading and greeting it's hello from TRPC, right?
Yep. So if we
refresh.
go to the
Awesome.
backend, we can change what that does. So if we hop into the folder browser again, go to server, which is just like what we chose to name this page. And
like
there's a router. Yep. And then in here, there's the index. We can start from the index.
Okay. Then I will tell
So
you
this is
what I think it's like a good pattern for files, and we can discuss about it. I really
Sounds
like
good to me.
discussing about like that thing.
I love these things too. I'm a big nerd about them.
Here's the magic, right?
Yep. So yeah, that's the magic. That type definition is how we use this backend. So if you have a mono repo with like a React Native mobile app, a Next.js web app, and maybe an Electron v desktop TypeScript app, you could, as long as you can import that type definition in all 3, you can now query against this API in a type safe way in all 3.
Awesome. But in this case, we are not importing that. This is implemented in trpc.usequery, right?
Yep. So if you right click, go to definition on the TRPC import here, specifically the TRPC import, you'll see here we create React query hooks with the router passed as a generic. It uses like TRPC gives you this helper function, create React query hooks, that gives you the query or the use query and the use mutation.
That already had
and it creates those
implicit. Okay.
Yes, based on the types of the router itself, which is super cool because at compile time, app router vanishes and we just have a React query implementation that is fetching against our server.
Yeah,
but at
this is
dev time, we have really good inference.
But this is because you are using Create app, because this is not out of the box. If you just install gRPC and use it, you have to do it manually.
Yes. There's a good bit of boilerplate to set up when you first start with TRPC, specifically because it doesn't have a build step the same way that GraphQL does. When you're using something like GraphQL, there is a schema that you write, and then you have to run a build step that generates type definitions from it. There's no type gen here, but because of that, there's more that you have to plug in to make up for not having type gen. Like the gap between backend and front end has to be bridged to an extent yourself. But once you've set this stuff up, and honestly, it takes about 15 to 30 minutes the first time you do it, it's not too bad. But there's a lot of little things you can do here, like the infer query helpers that we export there. Those are super helpful if you want to have like a component that takes a specific query's data in. You can use the infer query output to have that exact type used somewhere else. And knowing to do that, sorry.
No, so we have some delay, so it's still hard to not get over the other one.
No worries.
I think it's quite nice. because Next.js handles both server and client thing, we can use this on server and client using the same application and this type that was generated in here. And you don't have these things about, okay, I'm importing server code in the client or something similar. It's
Exactly.
really nice.
Yeah, like this one file is the point where our backend and front end cross now, and it's purely through the import type app router. That's the only line here where our backend and front end touch, and by having that one type import, this
And you
bridge
never
is now
touch this
gaps between
file.
our backend and front. Yep, I haven't opened this file in our code base in at least a year.
Yeah, exactly. You never touch the ugly file. You always touch like the thing that defines the schema and define the
I would argue
resolvers.
this one's even uglier. This is still an ugly file. Right click and go to the example router because I want you to see how we actually use it now.
See the example router. Oh man, I don't want. Well, this is a nice file. I have
Yep.
always used the app instead of Zod, but I think it's almost the same thing, right?
They're similar. The big difference with Zod is it's way more type safe. It was written with TypeScript in mind day one. It has really good inference built in. You can pass z.infer, the type of a Zod like validator, and it will give you that type definition, which is super useful for things like TRPC that are very heavy on type inference. Also, the creator of Zod made the first 3 commits for TRPC. He was the one who originally started it.
Nice. I really like it because I have some mixed feelings with Yap sometimes. So glad to see that there's something else in there that is quite nice. Also, we have this example router that for some not trivial reason it's called example. And then we have this query called hello and get all, and that resembles to example that hello, where these things get together.
Go back to the index and I will show you. Okay. Wait, do we not have where is the example router even? It's not word wrapping, so scroll right.
Scroll right. Okay.
See the dot merge?
Yeah. I was missing
You can
something.
just chain those.
Man, this is like so perfectly aligned.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see here, you can have as many routers as you want, and you pick the prefix before the queries and mutations named on it. So I like the syntax of example dot for that. Yeah. In v10, it's going to be an actual object. So you'll call trpc.proxy.example.hello as an object, which will be a nice, cool change, but we're still figuring out where we put that. So coming soon. For now, it's strings, and it's whatever strings you choose. You could use a dash instead of a dot here if you wanted to. Actually, let's do that. Change from example dot to example dash and don't save. See something change there?
Yeah.
How cool is that? Without even saving, it's smart enough to know.
Yeah, I'm really. This is okay because this is Typescript. Because if this was a Slint, I will still have to get a coffee and wait for the error to come back.
Instead, it's instantaneous because it's all living inside of the TypeScript compiler.
People still use JavaScript? Server. Can you explain why people?
I wish I could. I genuinely do. We're the TypeScript cult. That's our thing. We love our type safety.
I think it's part because of when every time you Google I want to learn TypeScript, right? And you see those generics in the libraries of I don't know, different libraries, and say, man, I can't understand this. And it happened to me.
The problem with learn TypeScript is it implies learn the things that are different from JavaScript, not learn JavaScript with spell check built in. And I think if we think of TypeScript more that way, especially for beginners, it's a way to have better feedback when you're learning JavaScript. You're just learning JavaScript with a different file name. I think that can work really well. But I totally agree. When you Google search learn TypeScript, what comes up is all of the hardest TypeScript things, most of which we never do.
Exactly. I really like to tell people that hates TypeScript because of this. Just create a type. If you use Next or you use Create React App or whatever, just pick TypeScript and don't do any type, and you will already get some benefits out of it. And now get your first component, your app component, and add a type, props, and just a single prop that it's a string. And you start seeing the benefits right away. So instead of just default into JavaScript. Let's default to TypeScript and don't do any types. But we have the possibility of opting in instead of having to like restart the project or add some dependencies. Like it's, for me, TypeScript should be the default with a really flexible TS config that allows you to not write any types. But well, just some ranting.
Totally agree. I want to show you one more cool thing. If we go back to the example, where's the TypeScript in this file?
Where's the...
There is no type definition, no colon, no anything that is pure TypeScript in this file. This is a JavaScript file that ends in .ts.
But it's because of this type of a router, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because we're able to infer all the way down, but the only type definition that exists in our backend right now is that export type. Everything else is inferred. We are just writing JavaScript.
And it's quite awesome because create router.transformer, we have a library. The type goes through create router, transformer, super JSON, this merge, and this, like, it's a really built definition. It's not like just importing the router and that's your type. Like, it's a craftsman working here.
It's all inference is the big thing. Like, the specific goal is your type. If you have to write your types yourself, there's a chance that those types will drift from the reality of what's underneath. When you're inferring your types, you can't have that drift happen because the types are what you're doing. They're not inferred from what you, or they're not built from what you thought you were doing at some point.
I like that.
Yep.
Awesome.
So
what should we do now?
Let's add a new query on the router. Let's hop into the example router. Let's take in an input that is something different. So right now it's like .query hello. If we change input from text to something else, like,
but we will create a new query, or we will change the hello one.
For now, let's just modify this one so you can see the relationship between the input and the resolve. So in the input here, we have a z.object, which is the same thing that you're used to with yep. That's a validator. And whatever we put here as the validator, that's the type of what we have to pass. So if we delete both of the .nullish, then go back to the client and try to remove things, we'll start getting errors.
Okay, so we will remove both of them.
And then in here, delete the second argument, and it will type error saying that we need that now.
Okay, great. Yeah, it says
hover over.
Yeah, probably we should do something like, let's leave this in here, and now it doesn't have any error, and if we remove it, now it has. Okay, great.
Yeah. So powerful. And anything you can validate via a form effectively will work here. And when we return data, it can be things that you don't normally get to return over the wire. Like, have you ever had the experience where you send a date time from your server to your client, and then you try to use it, and you get an error on the client because it got back a string and it thought it was a date?
Yeah, it happens so many times that I always use a number.
Let's return a date quick. Let's go add a date to the return here. Change it from, or add below greeting, date, new date.
Oh man, I'm so scared that I always use this thing. Like, I never use this thing.
Trust me. This is the magic of how we have things set up in this repo. So let's, right below that, if if the date exists. Oh yeah, we can put it there too.
Okay, and this is
date.
And
we'll do one of the internationalization functions. So to localized something.
To local date string.
Perfect.
Okay.
And that feels like it shouldn't work, right? Like, that's scary.
Oh, it doesn't.
Can't read property of. So put a question mark and wait. Why is it undefined? It should exist.
No, because this is the data. It's an object, but probably date isn't about.
No, it should have. Oh, do you know what it was? The data was stale. Delete the question mark. It's good now. I bet the client was just in a stale state.
I had to refresh. Okay.
Yep, that's what that was.
Because the state didn't have it originally. Okay.
But how cool is it that we can pass anything serializable and it works. Or even things that you wouldn't expect to be serializable, as long as it's a traditional structure, it's not a function, you can pass it down to the client.
Awesome. Yeah.
Want to see the one thing that enables that? If we go back to the index,
Are
there's
maps and
one
sets
tiny thing.
serializable?
Yep.
Yeah.
They're not in JSON traditionally, no, but with super JSON, they are. So if you go to index.ts again, in here, see the dot transformer?
Yep.
That's what does it. Super JSON is a wrapper that was originally created by Formidable Labs as a way to serialize things that JSON doesn't. So you can pass a date time, so you can pass a map, so you can pass like whatever you want to. Traditionally, you've had to use a Babel transform to use that within Next.js that would hijack all your server functions and all of the like parsers on the other side and use super JSON instead. Since TRPC owns that bridge, we don't need a Babel transform anymore. We just dot transformer.
Nice. Great. So we can serialize things that we shouldn't. Well, we can't. Instead of a function, we can serialize any other primitive, right?
Pretty much anything else. Yeah, I can't think of anything you can't. I guess a class, which kind of makes sense. But
why I will want to. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Same with functions, honestly. Like, why would you want to pass a function from the server when you could write a function on the server? And that's kind of the main goal of TRPC is when I was working on front-end apps and I was even using like the Next server functions, I found myself adding more and more stuff to the return of each of those functions. So I wouldn't have to write another function because it was so expensive to make a new file, copy paste all the inputs over, validate the input again, pick the different data, generate a type for it, return that all to the client, consume it, realize I missed one key, go redo the whole thing. That workflow, I'm sure that sounds somewhat familiar as a full stack Next dev.
Totally.
Yeah, now let's write our first new query. Let's do a new one. Go to the bottom here after the last paren.
Okay, and let's do
dot query.
And how
the first argument is the name for it. So just new query or something, or get to dos.
Let's do Theo lips, and we will return the
sounds good
libraries that Theo loves. Thanks, Manu, for the sub, and I think I already thanked the other ones. Thanks for the sub, and we have the resolve, and we can. Oh man,
I think you did close paren, not open there, or close bracket.
Let's do. Well, we can connect to Prisma for doing this. We can store this in other place, right?
Yeah, we can do that after. We can just return the strings here first, and then I'll show you how we change things in Prisma. Prisma's
Tell me three
a little bit heavier,
libraries.
But yeah.
No, cool. I have another question.
TypeScript, TRPC, and Tailwind.
No, I have Theo.
Oh boy.
Logos. And we have three logos that you love.
I have been actually thinking about this. I think VS Code's logo is phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree.
I really like that one. The linear one's grown on me. It's not quite descriptive enough, but it is really
like
cool.
The moon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the symbol that it's very recognizable despite being so simple, which I really liked.
Whoa.
It's linear.app is probably what you're going to have to search.
Linear.app.
There you go.
Well, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. I like the idea of like a task is a circle and we help you like slice it up. I think it's a little too clever, but I do like it. Or
it's the real...
No, that's what it is meant to represent.
Okay,
like
great.
It's the way that a thing is built. And I really do like that.
Awesome. And the third one?
YouTube. The YouTube logo has stood the test of time and continued. Like all of the refinements have just been slight changes. They keep going back to the same red whenever they leave it for too long. I think the YouTube logo, especially with a name that dumb, is held up.
Or really likes it. Because it's like when you hate something so much, but you see it every day. Like when Despacito, the song went out and people at first hated it and then they start loving it and they hate it again. It's like you get used to it. I don't know if... Well, it's... YouTube logo got really better with time. And now it's... it's yeah. Well, I will get that. Awesome.
I've been surprised at how well that logo aged. Somebody else said that they were surprised I didn't say the Ping logo. I love the Ping logo. It's probably my favorite, but I feel biased even saying that. I don't know if it'll come up when you Google search it, but if you go to ping.gg, I really love it in the pink. We have a small version, like the IN. I normally have it on my hat, but I wanted to wear my Vercel hat today. I do have
I
it right
didn't
here,
get my Vercel other thing. Oh, wait.
As people are sharing it in
No,
chat.
this one. No, this one. Oh, I don't have that thing.
Oh no.
Done.
No worries.
This one.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, that's lined up perfectly with the logo or that's hilarious. Yeah. Love this hat. Love the logo. Bryn absolutely killed it on all of our branding. You can see all of our emojis in chat, the ping penguin.
Oh, wait, but why these pinks are different, right?
Bryn,
Like
why are the pinks
one?
different?
Why are the pinks
Bryn's
different?
in chat. They'll justify it, I'm sure.
Let's see. Oh no, no Cortana, no. We have E24 AAD, and we have they are different.
Yeah, they're different. I'm sure Bryn has a good reason. The pink when you hover on the logo is different from the pink in the text below. I'm guessing that we didn't want to go that dark for the hover treatment because it feels less like a hover if it's that dark.
Oh wait, this pink is different too. This is ID.
We have a lot of they're complementary pinks.
Wait.
Oh, slow mo just killing poor Bryn.
This is 70 and this is 8D. We have 3 different things.
That's our color palette. It's like the same way other companies use gray, we use pink.
Well, but I really love all the 3 pinks, so I will just accept it.
They are good pinks.
Well, where we were before this?
We were resolving the logos.
Oh,
so let's go list those on client now. We can scroll. If we can make a new component, or we can just scroll back up and make a new use query. Probably the easiest thing to do that. So
in a new component,
scroll up. Oh, we can do it in this component. It's fine.
Okay.
So I would, or we should start a new line where we're using the new query. So const.
Okay.
Theo's favorites. Yep. We're gonna want to give those names now. So it's an object. So you're gonna have to make sure it's known that that's data. So data : Theo's favorite.
And this
I don't think you can do that inside. I think it's just the data : That's it.
Okay, because it's not an object that has the thing. Okay, there we are.
Yep, just to give it a different name. And then in the trpc dot, we want to switch the actual query it's calling.
Switch the actual.
So in the use query, it's example.hello right now. So change that to example.
Whatever I call this thing. No, man.
You can let it autocomplete. Don't go to the new file. Go back. Let it autocomplete.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, if you there it is.
TLS.
Nice. That's the magic.
And we don't need thanks Trpc. We don't need this thing.
Immediate type errors. So good. And now we can
just show this.
We can just delete the technology cards to give it more space.
Okay.
And just delete those 4 and put it in there maybe.
Yeah, let's do this thing and let's do just a ugly P saying Theo's favorite logos shine.
It's dot. Oh yeah, we already did the dot data. It might have to do a question mark in case it doesn't exist.
Yeah, because we have to do the same thing otherwise.
Yeah, but this lets you just skip that. See?
Awesome. Great. Love it.
Want to grab them from DB now?
Yep.
Cool. Well, let's hop into the prisma.schema file. If you open up here we are. Cool. I would install the VS Code extension for it quick. It's very good.
Okay. It's called Prisma?
Yes, Prisma, yep.
Prisma Insider or no Prisma?
Just not the Insider, the standard, it's fine.
Okay.
Cool. Yep. And if we go back to the Prisma file, once that's done, it should nice. Now it lights up all nice and will fix itself. Cool. So we're gonna probably want to make a new model. It seems like we just want technologies, so we could do model technologies.
Where?
Near the bottom. So Yep.
Model
technologies.
All in plural, like that.
Yep, that works.
Okay.
And in here, everything should have an ID. I would just copy paste the line from above with the CUID. I think it's nice having CUIDs for everything, just because you now have a consecutive way to see when things were inserted. That is almost always, or that is effectively guaranteed unique. But
Awesome.
What we wanted this to have is the technology name. So we could add technology name string.
Okay. Wait.
Or we just give it name, whatever.
Yeah.
Since it's already called technology, this name
a string. And that's it.
Yep.
And
we should also change technologies to technology, because this is just one technology.
Exactly. That was my question. Okay. Great.
That makes sense.
So
now what we have to do, since we made these changes, is we have to generate updated type definitions and then synchronize the database to our changes. So to do the new type definitions, we want to run the npx prisma generate command.
Okay.
So if you just terminate npx prisma generate. And what this actually does under the hood is it reads your schema. It goes to the node module for Prisma, and it overrides the type definitions in it based on your schema. So when you change things in here, now when you call or import from Prisma client, that client has type definitions based on what you have in your schema.
If I remove node modules, I have to rerun this thing again.
Yes. We have it as a post install for that reason. So when you do an npm install, it will automatically run this.
Right. Now
which is how CI works, in order for the CI to have the type definitions as well.
Awesome.
We do want to do one more thing, which is we have to push the changes to the database, because we made a change to DB. So npx prisma db push.
And this is not like in a hosted service. This is our file
this is your SQLite.
Okay. I'm a front-end developer and I don't know much about this thing. So
this is, or I like to think of Create T3 App as the gateway drug to trick front-end developers into going full stack. I was a backend engineer originally. I moved to front end because Twitch was moving to React and TypeScript, and I wanted to help, and ended up falling in love with it. Was a front end engineer almost exclusively for 4-ish years, and then the stack and building Ping yoinked me back, and now I'm very full stack at this point.
And now let's see. I have to wait, because now Prisma it's the one that will handle the connection between how we write things and how we get things from our database.
Exactly.
So
one cool thing we're doing is we attach the Prisma client to the TRPC context. So in any TRPC resolve, you can just start typing ctx.prisma. We don't want to grab off example. We want to grab off of the new thing we made. So why is it not auto-completing tech? Interesting. Go rerun npm install quick. That'll brute force the change there. It seems like it didn't pick up the update.
Let's see.
Yeah, cool. Go back to development environment, see if it... Interesting. Do you know the command to restart the TypeScript server in VS Code?
Yeah.
Give that a restart.
Restart the server.
Yeah, I think I have it bound to a hotkey at this point. I use it way too much. Why is it
there it is.
Oh, there it is, technology. Cool. And we can do .find many and just call that, and that will return all of them.
And we really don't have
any yet.
Anything. We just refresh and we should still have...
we have nothing because we haven't put them in database yet.
Exactly.
So let's do this the lazy way first. So go back to terminal. We should probably open another tab for this, because I'm going to show you one of the really cool things that comes with Prisma. Once you're in the same directory, ideally in the same PowerShell. Nice.
This is
my T3 app, I believe.
Yep.
So write npx prisma studio.
Nice. I really like that, because I don't really like to run commands as a front-end developer.
So check this out. Now, if we click technology, here is a table with our whole database, and we can click add record, the top there. Right, more?
There. I just realized that in Twitch, I have this being Spanish. Sorry.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Let's continue.
So if you click add record in the middle top there, it'll automatically add the ID, but we want to give it a name, so we can put
VS Code.
Vercel or VS Code. And add another record if we want to add 2 or 3.
Yeah, let's do them at technologies. It was okay.
Yeah.
Let's put Vercel so I don't get fired.
Sure.
And the last one,
TRPC.
no, I don't want to be. What's the third one?
TRPC.
TRPC. It's
Of course.
like this.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you don't say TRCP, I'm happy. The amount of people who consistently spell it wrong with mixing up the last 2 letters is so annoying.
I can be that guy. Oh wait,
don't do this to me.
No.
So you have to tab out of it. Yeah, this is not the best interface. If you don't tab out of the input when you hit save, it doesn't save it. Yeah. But now we're good. So if you go watch this, just go back to the Create T3 App tab.
Nice.
Oh, they're coming back as objects. Yeah. So let's go to the UI.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense because we just did a join, but we had to do a map. Let's get the tech, and from it, let's get the name for it. And now it works.
Yep, exactly. And I honestly do this even more. You can do that on the back end.
It makes sense. We have a place where we can transform data, which is this place. It's directly this one, right?
Yep. So we would want to store the result. Yep, const tech equals, and then we return the mapped version.
Awesome. So touch that map, and do touch and touch that time.
Yep. This
now
is
we will get
the type of stuff I. Yep.
Yeah.
And if we delete the .map, we're good.
I love this, man.
Yeah. This workflow is so cool. The thing that I love about this is it encourages you to write the exact correct API function you need for your UI. It's similar to like Remix in that way, where the loader and the thing you're rendering are so close to each other that it makes sense to write the right backend function.
Also, I think it's something that we need, this place that it's the middle between our data and our presentation layer. So we really need this place that gets the data, that can transform it and sanitize it for our frontend. So really important. And also it happens only once because it's happening outside of React, this transformation, right? It only happens when we fetch the data. So that's double nice. Great.
Correct. And since this uses React Query, if we fetch that exact same thing in 4 places, let's say we have 4 places that call trpc.useQuery example.theo logos, then those 4 places will all share one cache entity. And if one of them updates, all of them update.
Awesome. And if I want to imagine that those are, let's do something. And let's do this thing in here. And let's move this thing here. Okay, so let's do this in here. And that will do the thing. And if I do this thing 3 times,
it'll batch and make one request.
Let's do the network. Well, I don't have I have network? No, I don't have network requests.
Yeah, if you refresh, you'll have them. Huh? Oh, you might be searching for something or filtering? Yeah. See, they all went through in one batch, and we get the 2 things back for the 3 calls to it. We have the first call, which is the call that is checking that is the example.hello. And then we have the second one, which is
the technologies.
Yeah, I'm interested in why the order is different there. I'm surprised that the example.hello came in as 1 and the other one came in as 0, but it doesn't really matter.
Refresh. But this is it's example.theologos, example.hello, and this is the order of the response.
Yep. Yeah, so what's happening under the hood here, TRPC has a really cool layer that wraps your Next.js app using the TRPC React Query hybrid context and query provider. When you're doing a single render, it collects all of the TRPC queries that you did during that render, and then fires all of them off as a single batch.
It's awesome. And because it's using React Query, if we go back if we blur the application and we go back in here, it renders
It
again.
revalidates.
Okay.
Yep. Which is why when you change tabs and added or removed something and came back, it would update.
So I have another request in here because it tries to revalidate the data. If I go here and go back, it will try to revalidate.
Yep.
Awesome.
And you can opt out of that if you want as well. There's a really cool page on the React Query docs that is like the important defaults that includes all of this and the reasons why it's done.
And you put this in the use query or in the configuration of Trpc?
Yep. You could do it in either. It would be you do a second argument here, which is refetch on window focus false.
Refetch.
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't
refetch
use this
on window focus. False.
Awesome. So let's enable this again. So let's refresh.
So those ones won't change and the others will.
Wait. Oh,
interesting that those are.
Yeah, because this is the same.
Oh, because the parent component is still re-rendered.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's do the same thing here. Well, we can put a use memo, a memo in there without the use memo.
You could, or we could just put the refetch on window focus on here.
Yep. I was just throwing ideas. I won't put a memo in there for it.
I avoid memos if I can. You might have to refresh for the bindings to change, but it looks like that worked. Nice.
Yeah. Look. It works perfectly. Nice. And if I remove it,
is so good.
Yeah. And if I remove it and save, and now I have to refresh. It works, but not the other way around. Oh no, it doesn't work because I removed the highlight.
Huh.
Okay. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Why avoid memo? It's not that I want to avoid memo, but I don't think it's worth to just have a memo for 3 strings that show on screen.
I'm the one who said avoid memo. I generally find that I try to avoid re-renders, and memo prevents you from noticing re-render patterns that are not great sometimes, and you can flick on pretty hard after the fact there. We definitely re-render a little more than I would like at ping, but memoization can prevent you from noticing certain bad things. I almost like, if I could have memoization that only worked in prod, not dev, I would consider it, but that would have its own weird side effects too. But yeah, I memoize things when re-renders are happening in parents that don't affect the children and shouldn't, if it makes sense to. But generally, I let the React virtual DOM do its thing.
Well, I usually see more problems related to people trying to reduce the amount of renders than errors caused by too many renders. So people try to what's the word?
Over
optimize.
From re-renders.
Over optimize things before it's happened. Like only optimize if you are having a problem or you know that you will have a problem, but not over optimize. React, it's pretty smart to avoid this problem, so don't worry too much about it. By the way,
Absolutely
we can answer some questions or we can continue doing some things. Well, what do you think we can add to our application that we can't miss in the stream? I don't want to miss something coding in the stream.
I honestly feel like we've touched on most of the coolest parts. I think mutations are rad, but it really, like, if you know React Query, it does what you would expect to here. The difference being you get a type error if you don't match the type of the mutation on the back end. We could do a really quick, like, just see what it looks like to add a technology from the front end. So if we go to example quick, also chat, start coming up with some questions for us while we do this.
Something really cool is that everything that we just did until now, it's just happening on the client. So we don't really need, like, we can do this in Create React App or Bit. Nothing of this happened on the server. So it's not just closer to, let's use some server side or backend framework. So that's also
I actually had a project where I took a Next.js app I built using Trpc. It was the roundest Pokemon project where you vote on which Pokemon is more round. And I ported that to Solid.js on Vite on Vercel. And I used the same Next.js backend binding from this Trpc, like not this specific like T3 app, but a very similar one that I had from Roundest. And I just copy pasted it to the /API directory. And because Vercel deploys anything in the /API the same way it does in Pages /API in a Next.js app, I could build my backend in a Vite front-end repo and just call that on client side.
And wait, Voltor and Electrode are the most round ones, right?
Go to roundest.t3.gg and you can see who the roundest are.
No, but I want to. But it includes all the generations?
All
just...
the first 493, so gens 1 through 4.
So this is
roundest.t3.gg.
It's a game. Okay. But what do you consider that it's like round? Like
Up to the community to decide.
Because if I take this in a 2D plane, I will say like this is rounder than this one. But if I see it on a 3D plane, I will say that this one is rounder than this one.
You could also argue which one has more circles. You could argue which one has more curves and less sharp edges. There's a lot of different ways to measure this, and there is no objective measurement of roundest, which is why I built an app to help us determine.
But I don't get like a response.
This one's pretty objective. There is one Pokemon here that is much rounder, and I'll fight over it. Good answer.
Yeah, but I need a scientific response. It's not like what I think it's rounder. I really need an answer of which one it's rounder by scientific facts.
Yeah, we argued over this a lot. So our old name for Ping was round, and we wanted to use code names that were Pokemon. So I specifically wanted the most round Pokemon and the least round Pokemon, so I could use those for 2 different projects. And people rigged the results a bit. So if you go to the results tab on the bottom, you'll see some interesting results.
But these people is trolling.
Yeah, I got trolled hard. Somebody really wanted Dialga on the top, and they won. They got Dialga on the top. And somebody else really wanted Zapdos on the top, because I have another project named Zapdos. So they won too.
What is this, man?
Yeah, they went a little hard. People had specific Pokemon they wanted. They figured out how the API endpoints worked because I did the whole thing on stream.
I want to Google this thing.
You probably don't.
No,
yeah.
Let's just let it like that. Okay, let's do some questions. You said that there's something else that we had to try?
Yeah, we don't have to, but we could quick while people are coming up with questions. Awesome. We could do a mutation. So if we hop to example.ts quick, we can add our first mutation. Cool.
Okay, so this will be
at the bottom here. We're going to chain a dot mutation.
Okay.
Yep. Same general syntax. You give it a name. We can call it add technology.
Attach. Oh wait, this is still called Theo logos. So sorry about it. But I have to change it.
No worries.
No, Theo's favorite logos, man. Theo's favorite. Okay.
Perfect.
Theo.
So one of the really cool things that happens with the new version of TRPC, since it's based on like the object syntax instead of strings, you can right-click, rename like the VS Code helper, and it will rename on the back end and the front end at the same time. It's so magical.
Wait, but if I rename it in here, so let's do there. So if I go here and say example dot, I don't trust you in this one.
Yeah. This one, it won't. Is what it says. It doesn't do this in V9. In V10, it will.
Okay, yeah, because
yes,
it makes sense.
Because it's not a string anymore. With V10, it will be trpc.proxy.example.theonologies.useQuery.
Exactly.
And because it's an object like that, you can right-click, go to definition, you can right-click rename, and it actually shares the whole type on back and front.
Yeah, well, I in my head, I was like, how it maps the dot string to something. I was scaring.
Yeah. It doesn't do that. Thankfully, I would be very scared of that too. But it does work once you turn it into an object, which is one of the reasons we're moving away from it. Oh, the Vercel bottle. I have one of those as well. It's so nice.
Yeah, I don't have the cup. So I have to ask one. Theonologies, and we have theonologies, and awesome. And now we
want
have.
to do the add text mutation.
No, this is not that
This
function.
still has the same object syntax because we can define. We don't have to define an input if we don't want to.
And this resolver, resolve too,
works the same as exact as well. Yep.
And we have
There's effectively
to do
no difference
something.
between a query and a mutation, other than the mutations don't get batched.
Okay, let's do a return true, and let's do an await of ctx.prisma.tech.
We have to make sure we pass the context in resolve. Yep.
Prisma.technology.add create. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's
we have to pass this data in an object. So object syntax.
Where it's coming from?
For now, we'll just do a hard string, but we can add it after.
Okay.
So create. So this takes an object because it doesn't know what it's going to assign Pokemon to when you pass it. So this has to take an object that I believe is data for the first key. And then in that, we want to give it the structure for the object. So if you hover over, it'll give us a type error. That should be pretty good.
Yeah, awesome. I wanted to try that. So this is name, and I don't have to specify the ID because it's auto-generated. And if I also did something like this, D should be technology. Yep. Awesome.
That's technology. And you can return that instead of true if you want.
Yeah, but shouldn't we return when we create something?
I like to return the thing when you created it.
Yeah, me too. But people say that you shouldn't. So why? I don't know why.
I don't know why either. That's an interesting stance. I personally very much like to return the thing once it's been created.
Yep.
So we can go add a button that does that. We can make a new component even. Let's do const add technology button.
Okay. Let's do our return a button that add fetch. And if we click this, let's call.
So first we want to use the
fetch.
Yeah.
And this.
So now we want to const that works for now equals trpc dot use me. Yep.
Awesome. And this is still an array.
No, it doesn't need to be an array anymore because it works as an array, I think, but it doesn't need to be.
And I love the autocomplete. Let's show that
it's
again.
So good.
Like add mutation.
Open close paren. You don't have to do anything else from here. If you can, So as soon as you get the string, have all the options there.
Awesome. Let's see what we have in here. We have mutate.
Yep, that's the one you're going to want to use.
And let's do function handle attach. And let's call mutate because later we'll have a parameter or something. So that will do the trick, right? And let's just add this two in here.
So the one thing this won't do just yet is when we click it, it's not going to update the client because those other functions have no reason to rerun, but we can do that after pretty quick too.
Okay. This is add fetch. Yep. And if I click it, it will return.
And then and now if we refresh, we should see that Pokemon is now included.
Nice.
Yep. So we probably want that to update immediately, ideally. So we can do it the invalidate lazy way. So we'll have to access the Trpc context to do that. So in the add button, make a new line under the mutate where I do it above because there's a cleaner way to do this. So above this, do const ctx, probably the easiest thing, equals trpc.use context.
Okay.
Yep. And now let's go back to the use mutate, and we're going to give it a second argument.
A use mutation. Okay.
Yep.
Second argument.
Do an object here with the key on success.
Okay. Makes sense. On success, this is an arrow function, and this.
And then ctx dot invalidate.
Invalidate queries, and it should be example that
See, it will autocomplete for us because it knows all the queries.
Love it.
And now when we click add tech, it should automatically.
It will have Pokemon twice.
Yep, that's fine. It'll come up.
I want to click.
Cool.
Nice, nice.
Right.
And
Let's pass it an input now, quick.
I feel like this should be like I don't know if a second argument, but something like invalidate queries in here, like invalidate queries and just sending an array of things, because I guess that we should do this so many times.
Yes and no. Sometimes you would want to like ideally we wouldn't actually be invalidating the queries. We would do an optimistic update using the data that we got back. So in the on success, that actually does have an optional data argument that is the data it got back from the backend.
Okay,
So
makes sense.
yeah, if we wanted to, we could optimistically update here instead. I don't want to waste the time going to in depth on how that works. If anybody wants to look, the tier or the React query docs have lots of really good stuff on how to do that.
Perfect.
But I do want to quickly add an input for this, then we can answer some questions. So go back to the example router.
To the example router. Okay.
Yep. Scroll up to, or actually, we don't. Yeah, we can scroll up. Grab the line 7 through 9. Just copy paste those inside of the add tech.
Which one?
Line 7 through 9. The input key on hello.
This one. Line 12.
Up line 7 through 9 specifically.
Oh, 7 through
Zod.
9. Okay.
Yes.
I was like, it's okay. 7 through 9 and input.
Yep, and then paste those in the mutation.
Okay, like in here.
Yep. So here is that we could rename text to tech or something. And now you'll see we get the type error on the front end.
Sorry, I have to.
Technology.
Theo. I took this solution. I now have to rename everything theology, and now I have to get that information from here.
Yep.
And I get it using input.
Yep, it's another key on resolve.
Okay.
And that key infers from the type you have there. So if you try to access something that you didn't do there, it doesn't exist.
Okay, name is a string. Okay, and this is a string.
Input, it's input dot.
Okay.
Because
theology. Because
input has the theology because that's
input.
the key you gave it.
Exactly. Well, I can send.
And now here we're getting the type error because we're calling mutate without giving it an input.
Yeah. And I think this makes more sense for this case.
Yeah, that should work. I try to use Zod objects usually on the client, but that should work too. I'm actually curious if it doesn't. Let's put a different string in there. Let's put Typescript and see what happens when we click it.
It works. And if I click attach, it types Typescript.
Perfect. Super cool.
Makes sense. I really liked it. I think that it's really hard to maintain. One of the hardest part of these applications is to make like the backend and the frontend seamlessly integrate between them, and this makes the work really easy. I mean, I see TypeScript like a big solution for having less bugs because of me typing things wrong, or because not having the context between files and not having the context in my mind between files. It's one of the reasons why TypeScript makes so much sense. And this thing about having all the context all the time for all the data you handle on your application makes a lot of sense to avoid a lot of problems.
Couldn't agree more. It has let me take back so much of my brain power that was spent constantly double and triple checking everything. Like, did I spell this function name wrong? Is the key correct? Am I validating these inputs in time? All those other things. Like in the Zod validators that run in that input, if they fail validation, your function doesn't run. You never have to worry about your backend code running if your inputs aren't valid. And there are whole categories of problems and bugs that I was dealing with every day that vanished. It feels like what TypeScript did for front end, but for my whole stack.
Yeah, and I also something that it's really cool. It's that we didn't have to type any type for it, so people that hate TypeScript can integrate to this stack without having all the hassle that learning TypeScript has. You can get all the benefits.
Write a single type definition this whole stream.
Yeah, and you don't have to type it. Like which one do we type? I think that we just removed types we didn't add any type, right?
Yep, we did not add a single type this entire stream.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep, I'm the anti-TypeScript TypeScript dev. It's great.
Yeah, I think the people, anti-TypeScript people will love it because you get all the benefits and they will eventually say TypeScript it's not needed. Uh, I really love it. I think it's solving one of the problems I usually have when I'm a front-end developer that doesn't have much experience on backend. And handling data, it's where we mostly fail. So this helps a lot. I really like it. Do you want
Absolutely
to
agree.
answer some questions before
Yeah. I saw
finishing?
one in particular earlier that I really liked. There was a question about reusing the Zod validators on the front end. And you absolutely can do that. And I do it all the time. If I have like a specific form where all of the data from that form is hitting one mutation, I'll regularly make a special file that's like shared validators
Okay.
that has different Zod validators in it. And then you can import the same validator on both the front end and the back end.
Okay, and do something like
So the
this.
problem with
And
putting
you
it in
shall
here
reuse.
is if we import that on the client, then we're importing a backend file, and we don't want to
Yeah.
do that. So you'd want to put that in a different file that both the backend and the front end can import from.
Super important thing.
Yes.
Never import something from the front end that includes things that are used on the backend.
Yes. Unless you're just using get server side props. But again, I'm not a big fan of get server side props for these reasons. It blurs the line in a way where you have to understand compilers to know what's going on. And I try to avoid that as much as possible in my code bases.
It's reducing the amount of ways where you can fuck it up. So
yes,
if you just move it to another file, you have one less problem to worry about.
Absolutely agree.
Awesome. Let's go to interview, and for people that it's their first time in here, you can do exclamation mark Q space the question, and it will show highlighted. So I will miss all the messages that you sent through the entire stream, and I will only see the question ones. Also, if you tag me like at Gonziposo and put something, I will still see it. For example, we have today Machu and only active subscription collab. So thanks, Lucas. Change the title and description. Sorry about it. I realized a little bit.
Sorry,
wrong.
I missed that too.
Can you explain a bit how Trpc routes and context implement within the Next.js API routes?
Yes, it has one route that it takes over. So you use like the catch-all syntax with the like brackets ..trpc .ts inside of pages /app or /API. And then there's just a route API /trpc, and everything you hit there goes through the one trpc function.
Awesome. Yeah, we have. Okay, I didn't saw that. We have a pages API trpc. So you don't have to create your own API routes. You already have everything mapped.
Yep.
That makes sense.
It's one route, and it handles everything from there. You can deploy that on a single route on a single Lambda yourself if you want to. You don't have to do it through Next, but in Next, it's trivial.
Excellent. Is there a performance penalty for that magic? Which of all the magics that we saw? Because
I'm assuming for all of the TypeScript inference stuff. And yes, on dev mode or in the developer experience, once you have a certain number of TypeScript functions that exist in the same code base that are inferring on top of the same like structure, it can get pretty heavy. TRPC v10 is focused very heavily on performance and doing a little bit of code gen stuff ahead of time in order to make the performance way better. We've seen projects with as many as like 2,000 to 5,000 TRPC queries and mutations with good developer experiences still. But in v9, I would say around 250 to 500s where you're going to start seeing like your TypeScript server starting to crash because of how much is going on underneath it. That all said, if you make responsible use of things like package or project references to break up how much TypeScript compilation happens at each step of your build, and you combine that with things like Turbo Repo to further break things down, you can still have a very performant experience with a big TRPC project. It's mostly problems that exist with TypeScript inherently, and the team's working really hard to solve them.
Awesome. Yeah, there's Turbo Repo is something else that I should totally check. It's like I'm the worst Vercel employee. Like I'm missing all the things that Vercel is doing, but I'm doing the ones that I can talk about. So that's nice for me. Is there a good source to start learning TypeScript types wizardly stuff?
If you're referring to anything we did today, I think the best way to learn it is just building. I don't think we did too much type wizardry today. In fact, I think we kind of did the opposite. As you guys saw, we didn't add a single type definition the entire stream. I am not a very good TypeScript dev. There are probably a lot of better TypeScript people in chat than me. I saw Trash
Me
Dev was
too.
here earlier. He is phenomenal at TypeScript. I'm okay at it. I think if you want to do the like crazy type definition stuff, there's the advanced TypeScript challenges. Trash Dev's been doing them on stream. Definitely check his stuff out if you want to learn that more. I just
We
like
love
building
Trash.
things.
Yeah.
He's great.
Also, I agree with you about doing things. We have like a phrase in here that it's in Spanish that it's menos cursos más proyectos, that translates to less courses more projects or something like that.
Mhm.
Because people always end in this like course loop where they do something and they finish and they start something else and they never do anything. Like they never do a project. So totally agree. Just do things and it will eventually make sense.
Couldn't agree more.
Shapeadeo says, I know that it's possible because of documentation says it, but how Theo
There's a
thinks that it's
TRCP. Ugh.
TRCP. No, but it's okay.
I don't know why people do that.
It's TRCP.
No,
Oh
it's
man,
TRPC.
I had to read.
For whatever reason, people spell it wrong all the time. I don't know why.
I didn't get the thing until I had to read it again. Okay,
Yep.
I will read it. I will read it. Okay. I know that it's possible because of the documentation says it. Say it. But how Theo thinks that's the best way to configure or integrate TRPC to existing API. In example, Fastly or Express and consume it in React.
Write all your new endpoints using it, and as old endpoints need changes, move them over to it. There's nothing about TRPC that requires you to adopt it for all of your endpoints as soon as you install it. When I first added TRPC to ping, I was adding it for just one function. Liked it so much, I rewrote all of the functions of a similar type in that like section of the code base over. So about a third of our API functions moved over in one night as soon as I found it. And then over the next month, I moved everything else over because I liked it so much and it was solving problems for us. But you don't have to. You can have one route on your existing Fastfire Express router that you give the TRPC Express or Fastify binding, and it will own that from there. You can start moving over as soon as you want.
Excellent. It says what VS Code plugin I use for show code errors in line. I use one that it's called Error Lens. That's it.
Super useful.
Once he asked them if he has experienced some problems with Prisma on Reddit, it's quite criticized.
I have a lot of thoughts on Prisma. I can't answer this in a short form. I will say Prisma feels very Angular in the sense that it went through some shit to prove out some really important stuff. And we will forever owe Prisma a debt in how much it has proven in terms of like full stack development capabilities and full stack type safety. Whether or not it's the thing I'm using next year is to be determined.
Awesome. Can you set up Prisma in a way that updating a table will invalidate a fetch like find many? I think we already did that, right?
That's yes, but I really like this question because we didn't do that on the Prisma level. We did that on the client level. And if you're used to something like Supabase, where any one person changes one field and all of the clients get updated automatically, that's not a thing that Prisma does. I've actually talked about this though, like the idea of a Prisma subscription. You'd have to build a heavier client library for it though. I wrote a proposal a while back for on a TRPC mutation, you could pass a key and it would invalidate that key for any users on it using a webhook, but or a WebSocket. None of that exists now, but you'd have to build that yourself. That said, it's not too hard to have a WebSocket waiting for when a change happens and fire a refetch when it does. We do that all the time at Ping.
Awesome. What's my VS Code theme? It's Ayu. AYU. Theo, when are you gonna do another collab with Primation?
I answered that one in chat as soon as he has something good for us to do. I will collab with pretty much anybody who shows up in my DMs with a good enough idea. I don't, as much as I love Prime, he doesn't get like top of the list if he doesn't have something. But as soon as he wants to do more like front end or full stack stuff and has a good content idea, I'm on the show immediately.
Awesome. Theo, do you have any insights on when V10 is coming out?
When we finish this last set of arguments and discussions about the syntax for the new API, it's consumable right now. I am using it for some projects. I would say about a month or two, probably. I'd be very surprised if it took longer than end of year. It all works. It's just like decisions have to be made and documentation has to be written.
Awesome. Thoughts on replicas? Would love to see a Theo rant about that type of way of building apps.
I'll say more coming soon. I actually have a really fun stream tomorrow. First off, I have Jack Harrington, the blue collar dev, the other like very senior focused web dev or in full stack dev on YouTube. Love him to death. So happy to have him on the show tomorrow for an interview. After that, we're going to be building on top of Upstash Redis for my first ever sponsored stream. And I'm really excited to be building, it's not Replicache specifically, but building a Redis focused, we'll probably rewrite Roundest to see how fast we can make it.
Awesome. Hey Theo, what's your VS Code theme? I love it.
T3.gg/FAQ. I answer all the easy questions there.
Awesome. What's your split between working on Ping and working on content community? Something like 50-50?
Nowhere near it. I would say I probably work like 80-ish hours a week total because I'm always doing something related to one of those two. I would say of that, it's probably 80-20. I try to spend less than 10 hours a week on content if I can. I do one stream of my own. I'll guest on one or two other streams, and my video editor takes it from there. Most of my work is just thumbnail stuff. But I'm putting in 40 hours a week at Ping at least right now. There's a lot to do, and I'm always thinking about those problems too. Even now, we're testing new Ping stuff on the stream.
Yeah, we tested a lot of things. Do you recommend first learning Trpc by itself, then T3, or start with T3? I will first like to understand Trpc. Oh man, that was like a tongue twister.
Yeah, good question though. I think you should start with Create T3 App. I think Alex would agree at this point too. Obviously, understanding the parts and how they connect is valuable, but I think you're going to get enough of that out of this stream and playing with it to be productive. At some point down the road, I would set it up yourself so you can understand the parts a little better and then go back to the Create T3 App template and be blown away with how much it provided because it is a really good template. But yeah, you can absolutely get started with the T3 project.
I can agree because this magic about having the types inferred for the queries and everything really was like one of the most important parts in doing this application. And if you don't do it with Create T3 App, you won't have it. You have to do it on your own. So
the docs are very good at teaching you how to do it, but you do have to do it on your own.
Yeah. Is Theo getting into Rust in the future or no?
Something I say a lot is I dream of a future where I have to hire Primeagen because our company is so successful that my awful slow TypeScript backends aren't keeping up with the demand. I don't have anything against Rust. I just don't have any problems that it meaningfully solves for me right now. And by the time I do, I think I'll be too busy to learn it.
Awesome. Popo is Poop says, what is a mutation exactly?
I was low-key hoping we wouldn't get to this question because it's very hard.
It's a query that changes things.
It's a query that probably has side effects and shouldn't be run automatically. I like to think of it as a server-side action that a user triggered, generally. So a click or a event or a change or a submit or a key press, those types of things. I think of a mutation as a thing running on a server because of a user action.
Awesome. Can you say something in Spanish, Theo? And you will
thankfully no is
yourself.
the same word in both English and Spanish, so no.
Awesome. Well, it's valid. The test passes. Does Theo looks like Adam Scott? Who is Adam Scott?
No, the answer is no. We can move on.
Okay. How this stack works in a real life project with a lot of handlers like images, a lot of models, rows, etc. Have you some benchmarking done?
Images and files aren't type safe inherently. You have to do so much crazy stuff in validation. Generally, when it comes to those things, I'm not doing those on my servers. I usually send a pre-signed URL to my user who then posts to S3 directly. Very common pattern to do things like that. I mean, I've been using this stack at Ping every day for over a year now, and the only problem we've had is we keep running out of things to build because it makes us move so fast. So I can say it's scaled incredibly well for us, even though we were doing a lot of things wrong. God, I wish Create T3 App existed when we started because it smoothed out a lot of the rough edges I had to figure out over that year. But this tech's great. I know at least a dozen companies really heavily building into TRPC and these other pieces of tech on top. Hell, I know Snaplet, which is a company that does like database replication for dev technology stuff. One of the creators of Redwood.js, which is a framework kind of competing with Create T3 App. It's focused on like full stack GraphQL TypeScript. That framework, although it uses GraphQL internally, the Snaplet devs wanted to move faster, so they actually removed GraphQL and replaced it with TRPC inside of Redwood because of how much this helps them move at their company.
That's awesome. Farrell is one of our mods. He's in Spain. He's the mod of most Spanish developers, and it's everywhere. And he says that Theo, I love your videos and streams.
Means a ton. Thank you, man.
Then Wesley Coder says, is that a recommended way to deploy this stack on AWS?
Yeah, for sale. It runs on AWS. If you mean your own AWS, though, there are some cool projects that have made that easier. I know that the serverless stack guys, Dax in particular over there, super cool. He's actually the second investor at Ping. Love him to death. They have a bunch of guides on how to use TRPC and these other techs on top of serverless stack. I also know that Flybear, Brandon, the creator of Blitz.js, is also running a company, flightcontrol.dev, that was in the same Y Combinator batch as us, that specifically is trying to let you run your own Vercel-like experience on top of your AWS directly.
Nice. Definitely not Girl says, just want to say thank you both for the content you make. Give it up. Thank you. Thank you, not Girls. Did you ever deploy T3 stack in a Docker Swarm stack or using K8s?
I am not smart enough for Kubernetes. No. I've played with deploying it on Fly just to see how it works like containerized. There's cool stuff there. Yeah, still not something I've done, but I know specifically the guy who created TRPC has done that a bunch, so it's absolutely doable.
Awesome. Santi says, thanks Theo for creating content about developing. Keep it up. So a lot of love for Theo here.
Hyped to have it. It's super cool to see.
I won't read this name, but what does Theo think of objects as React query keys? TK Dodo seems to be a big fan of it.
I'm cool with them. Generally, the thing I like about TRPC is I don't think about keys in React query anymore. Because the key is the input for your TRPC function. So React query keys are one of those things I used to think too much about that I don't have to think about at all anymore.
Okay. And Flamita says, why you don't like Flutter? Flamita, it's a really big contributor to the community. So we have to answer this one.
Okay. Flutter misunderstood what was wrong with React Native and made the bad parts worse. It abstracted at the wrong level. The thing that React Native does really well is it knows what native is. In my JavaScript, I'm telling native what to do. In Flutter, they decided native wasn't good enough and they built their own game engine instead. My apps aren't games, my apps are apps. I want a button to be a button. If I was making a game, I would use Unity. And I find that Flutter is the wrong abstraction for a lot of like application development.
Well, in a moment in time, I really liked Flutter because I started doing small things in Flutter because before React Native had fast refresh. So before fast refresh, React Native for me was like crap. And I started doing Flutter and the development experience was so nice. And then React Native implemented fast refresh and it was, well, now I don't need Flutter anymore. But yes, I can understand this about having a game engine because it works like a game. You have so much optimization for those animations and everything. Seventh, just put smaller names, please. How would you structure API routes in just one routes file?
I don't have to. TRPC is one route. There's actually a really fun moment I had with one of the engineers at Ping. Funny enough, they were a game dev before they started working like full stack TypeScript at our company. And they were working on our code base for probably 6 months or so, building full stack stuff. They built our admin panel internally, a bunch of stuff like that. We were planning a new project that was going to involve like an external server that did transcoding and stuff, and it had to have an endpoint to hit it and tell it what to do. After we like planned out for a few hours, I overruled the dumb question rule. I was like, "Do you have any questions?" They're like, I feel so dumb asking this question. What's an endpoint? They had worked for me for 6 months, and the term endpoint hadn't mattered yet. Just like here, the API route is a term that wouldn't have mattered to them yet because they write a function and then they call the function. None of that thing that hooks it up is in your brain anymore when you use this stack. You're just writing functions and calling them.
Well, I think that probably the question came from the side as how you structure router, like your queries. Like you have all your queries and all your mutations in the same file, or you have files that you then import in your router.
That's a good question. I do very similar to what we saw in the boilerplate here, where there was a separate routers folder that had the example router in it. And then at my top level, I merge routers for different things. So I have like the user router, the rooms router, the calls router, the admin router. And each of those has queries specific to that thing. And then I break those off into files, mostly for importing in other places purposes more than anything. It makes it easy to find the thing you want to use, or in our case, often reuse. And since this is just TypeScript functions, you can export one of those functions and then use that in a get server-side props, or use that in a public-facing API function that isn't using TRPC. But yeah, I tend to structure things as simple as possible with a few different routers for different things, and then whatever queries those need underneath.
I think that this one is trolling, but it's will TRPC work with all my Flutter apps?
Oh, Ollie. Oh, Ollie.
Yeah, so I guess it's trolling.
Yes,
Theo,
that was
why
trolling.
hate on M50X?
Because they're terrible headphones. The goal of the M50X is to make bad things sound, or make anything that isn't correct sound as loud and bad as possible. So as a mixing engineer, you can fix it. They weren't built to sound good. They shouldn't be used for like anything other than mixing. If you want like Audio-Technica headphones that sound good, get the M40 or the M60. They both sound way better than the M50.
Awesome. Theo, a quick rant about Create React App. Well, I don't know why people want you to get mad and rant about things.
This is my thing. It's the hot takes. They love me for this. I have a YouTube video that you can go watch that's an hour long, so it's not quick. But the TLDR, Create React App was written when Webpack was still a problem. As a society, we have moved on. There are too many better options to justify it, and it comes with a lot of cruft you don't want to deal with. It's a legacy support project at this point.
Do you remember that time when every time you want to create a project, you had to manually add a Webpack config or a gulp or grant or whatever? Well, I don't miss those times.
I'll do one better. I upgraded one of the biggest internal repos at Twitch from Webpack 2 to Webpack 4 myself, my first 3 months into web dev.
2 and 4. Awesome.
Awful says, experience. I learned a ton.
Thanks both for this huge stream and for answering the questions. Thanks to you, JP. Amos Bass says, what's your recommended way to handle long-running tasks and stuff like cron shops? Separate server?
You guessed it. I like to make as much of my application as stateless as possible. And the benefit of the way we built today is all of this can run on a Lambda minus your database, which you throw wherever. I think that there is so much simplicity that comes from having as little state as possible that for the things that need state, I try to outsource those as best I can.
Awesome. Before going to the next question, does the co-founder started streaming already?
Yeah, she's live. We can raid her whenever you're ready to go.
Okay, let's answer 3 questions and let's try. If you can send me the
already dropped it in chat.
Oh, awesome.
As long as I don't get censored for it. It's freckle
bites. It works. As a junior developer trying to prioritize career opportunities, what more tools would you recommend besides the T3 stack to advance on my career?
I try to preface this often. I guess I didn't give my usual like spiel at the beginning of the stream. don't watch my shit if your goal is to get a job as fast as possible and as much pay as possible. I quit a $400,000 a year job to shit post and make cool tech for streamers and content creators.
Sounds good.
Yeah, a lot of the tech that you saw us use here is not going to be used at bigger companies for a while, and those are going to be your best bet for your first job. There's a creator, Danny Thompson, who does a lot of like how to get your first gig and how to get your foot in the door type stuff.
Awesome.
Those people give awesome advice, like learn the programming languages that people are hiring for around you to get started. Once you've gotten that first job and you've put your first year in, if you hate the stuff you're working on and want to go play with fun tech and startup land, that's when you come to my streams and watch my videos and can take things from there.
Awesome. Where do I send my CV for what ping?
Yep. We have a website, hiring.ping.gg. We are not hiring, and I don't know when we will be. But yeah, there's a meme that the Hunger Games start once we're hiring because everybody wants to work at Ping.
Awesome. Theo,
huge
how
shout
do you
out
start
to Igor in chat for making the site.
How do you start learning new things? Doing things.
There's two sides to this for me. The first is how do I find new things, and the second is how do I learn them. I think my answer to the find part's a little different than most, and I think it's like the more interesting part. When I see a technology or an idea or something that's cool, I try as hard as I can to look past the thing towards the person and see who they are, what influenced them to do this, how did this thing get made, why does this exist? And from there, you can find way more cool stuff, because generally a person who built the cool thing, that's not a one-off. They're probably building other cool things. They're probably talking with other cool people who are building other cool things. And if you follow the people who do cool stuff, you can find lots of other cool things to work on. Even like me to an extent with all the fun tech we're playing with here. How do we learn them? I go build stuff with it. I just try to make things using the tech.
Awesome. And last question, it's what do you use it for API routes documentation for external consumers, such as Swagger?
I don't have APIs that are externally consumed at the moment. If I did, I would use something like Swagger. Because Trpc is just functions that I wrote on my backend, I can expose those other ways. Like I can make a traditional like API route that is a traditional public Swagger API and call the same function there that I call in Trpc. But public functions to me and external customers are a very different use case that requires a level of care that Trpc allows me to ignore outright for my internal APIs.
Awesome. Well, let's remove this. Before saying goodbye and writing, where people can find you and all the things that you want to say to the people in here.
Of course. Make sure you give my channel a follow on Twitch. I stream every Wednesday at around 1 p.m. PT until around 6 p.m. So about 4 hours before now to about 2 hours after now, if I can go that long. Just whenever I have fun things to talk about, it goes for a while. Have a guest on most of the time. I have Jack Harrington coming on this week. Super excited for that. Also, make sure you follow my co-founder, Bryn. We're on the partner grind super hard for her. She has been killing it on Twitch lately, much more front end than me, where I'm focused on full stack.
Right now.
Yeah, we're going to go raid Bryn right after this too. And I'll probably be jumping onto her stream as well for her to bully my old code I sent her a GitHub repo for.
Awesome. Well, Theo, for the people that it's in here, we usually do some raffles and giveaways in the stream. We will do it on Discord. We will go to a channel. So we can do it in Spanish without any problems, and we will write. So we will write, stay on the other stream, and if you want to participate on the giveaway, you can go to the Discord channel. So Theo, again, thanks for all the stream today. It was awesome. I learned a lot of new things, and I hope people in here also learn a lot. And well, you are invited anytime you want.
Super appreciate it. Thank you again so much. Really cool to get to talk more about Create T3 app and all the cool things the stack enables.
Thanks. Well, now we are going to write Prekybytes. What people have to say on the chat when they reach stream?
Please don't port ping to view.
Okay, great. Don't port ping to view. Okay. Well, people, thanks and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you again.